Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us. Well, up first, we'll get to that severe storm causing flooding in Toronto, including along the Don Valley Parkway and the busy Union Station. Darius Madavi will join us to explain. Plus, it appears BC and Alberta have made amends on their cross-border wine spat. Direct-to-consumer sales to Alberta will now be allowed. What do wineries think, and what does this signal about BC-Alberta relations? In half an hour, what's the hardest part of dating in 2024? Call us on that. I'm Michelle Eliot. Welcome to BC Today. A severe storm has left many of Toronto's streets flooded today, including the Don Valley Parkway, a major highway, and Union Station in the city's busy downtown core. And Toronto Hydro said more than 167,000 customers are without power. Let's bring in CBC's climate and science specialist, Darius Madavi, now here in studio. Hi, Darius.
Hello.
Well, the images are quite stunning, seeing that flooding along roadways and down the stairs as you head into Union Station. I mean, describe for us, how severe is this?
Right. So for people watching, that image there on the bottom part of that's an actual river, and on the top part is a highway, and you can't really tell the difference.
You could see cars sort of partially submerged.
Yes.
The tires were certainly within the water. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So it's starting to, conditions have improved, but we're looking at some serious ramifications to this. So the last time we saw anything similar to this magnitude was back in 2013, July 8th, 2013, where we saw 125 millimeters of rain. Here we saw around 100 millimeters in just 3 hours. So this is a major situation. In 2013, this was $1 billion disaster. So we're looking at something similar here. Even though we maybe didn't get as much rain in total, the flooding seems to be at least as bad, if not worse. So we're looking at a similar sort of monetary damages here, in addition to the safety concerns for people. So this was a really major event that affected not just the city of Toronto, where we saw, again, 96 millimeters of rain in just over 3 hours recorded at the airport, but other areas would have gotten more than that, some areas less than that, because that's just one station, much like at Vancouver Airport is very different than the rainfall totals up on the North Shore. It's a similar situation in Toronto. There are areas that get a lot more rain than that, so some places probably well into the 100, well above the triple digits in terms of rainfall that we saw today. So definitely serious.
And so far as we know, there are no, there are no injuries. There have been some rescues. But what are the safety concerns? We heard the mayor of Toronto, Olivia Chow, speaking in the last hour, saying, please be careful out there. What would be the safety issues right now then?
The big things are for people in vehicles, because floodwaters can be extremely dangerous. If you are going to be leaving your house, stepping into floodwater is very dangerous. They can contain all sorts of things you don't want to have in contact with your body, and then also the floodwaters themselves can be full of, sewage and pesticides and chemicals that you really don't want to come into contact with. So it's very similar to the flooding concerns that we have that we get here in BC. But just generally, Toronto's infrastructure isn't necessarily as good in some places in BC in terms of the flooding. So we've seen, for instance, one employee at CBC Toronto had to go home because they had their home was being flooded by sewage because it was being backed up from the sewer. So it's all sorts of safety concerns, both in terms of the infrastructure in place and in terms of what people are doing. Because as we saw, many people out on the road still trying to make their way through the parkway.
That's right. And did we know this was coming?
Not to this magnitude. So yesterday we saw a similar line of thunderstorms move through places like London, Ontario, and dropping around 75 millimeters of rain there. So we saw some flooding, localized flooding in areas like Burlington and Oakville in Ontario. But we didn't. It's very difficult to forecast with these sort of lines of thunderstorms what exactly is going to happen. So we do have rainfall warnings still in place for areas just east of Toronto, but the city of Toronto has gotten all the rain really that they're going to. It's clear skies for the most part in Toronto now. But yeah, still some rainfall warnings in place, and Ontario has this phenomenon called training thunderstorms, where sort of the cool lake water and the air above it can sort of feed these thunderstorms and allow them to continue to propagate much more than they would be able to otherwise. So it's just sort of it's hot, moist air of the summer, and they just allow these storms to propagate, and it can be as we saw, really devastating.
Yes, certainly. And as you said, though, things are abating in terms of
Yes.
rainfall for today. A lot of the cleanup perhaps still ahead.
Yes.
Darius, you're going to be busy today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That's CBC's climate and science specialist, Darius Madavi. Now, we did call and contact the YVR Communications to see if there was going to be any impact on flights to Toronto due to the rainfall. And so we have received a statement from them, and it says significant rainfall in the Toronto region is affecting some flights at YVR to and from Toronto Pearson International Airport. So we encourage travelers to check the status of their flight with their airline before coming to YVR. You can check their website, yvr.ca. And again, we'll keep an eye on the impact of the flooding and a severe storm in Toronto. As Darius said, that rainfall has abated now. And so warnings to residents to be careful as they head out. There's a lot of discussion around cleanup and infrastructure as well as the day moves forward. Much more on this story throughout the day here on CBC. It's 12:12 now. To other news, the taps have been turned back on for BC's wineries who are looking to ship their products directly to Alberta consumers. This was the subject of a months-long dispute with Alberta's liquor regulator sending letters to wineries to stop the practice or it would stop stocking BC wine in its stores. Well, this morning, BC Premier David Eby and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith announced a new agreement at the Premier's Conference in Halifax.
We have gone through a challenging time in our relationship with Alberta. Lots that we've been successful in working on together. One of the areas where we've been challenged is the ability for BC wines to cross the border into Alberta so that Alberta consumers can enjoy BC wine too. I had the opportunity to raise this concern with Premier Smith, and she committed to me that she would take it back and work with her team on this.
Let me add that Alberta consumers are an advocate as well. We heard a lot from them about how they wanted this direct delivery restored, and so I'm glad that we were able to come to an agreement, and I'm confident that it is a sign of things to come. All parts of Confederation have an interest in improving trade between the provinces, and where there's a will, there is a way, as Alberta and BC have just proven.
We're going to hear what wineries think in a moment, and we'll also talk about what this signals when it comes to BC and Alberta relations. Does it sweeten things up? Things have soured over various issues over the recent years. So we're going to talk about the politics of all of this as well. And we're asking you on the open line, will this agreement on wine sales to Alberta direct to consumer help to boost BC's struggling wine industry? And what does this mean for BC-Alberta relations? You can call us now, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, and you can hit pound 690 on your cell phone, or you can email bctoday@cbc.ca. Joining me first up for some reaction is Shravna Khanna, a wine educator and Wine BC ambassador. Hello, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Michelle.
What is your reaction to this agreement?
I think it's a great deal of relief on behalf of BC wineries. The direct-to-consumer to Alberta is a big part of British Columbia wine sales. Anywhere from 10 to 25% of wine sales goes to Alberta. And so the ability to direct ship for wine clubs and for people who are coming into BC to visit wineries and then having wine sent back to their homes is huge for wineries, especially at a time, it's ironic we're talking about what's happening in Toronto with climate today, at a time when, climate has certainly affected BC wineries as well.
You said 10 to 20%. Is that all direct to consumer, or is that also selling to liquor stores and wine stores in Alberta?
It's primarily direct to consumers, but yes, it does include going to Alberta liquor stores as well. And, Alberta's decree originally had said that if wineries sent direct to consumer, then they would be X'd off the list and would not be able to sell in Alberta liquor stores. So that restores that little bit for them as well.
What impact did that have on wineries that, as we know, have already been struggling with the impact of the cold snap when it comes to this year's stock?
I mean, it's demoralizing for wineries. It's been a horrible 3 years for wineries in general, with heat domes and cold and really the frost, and then not to account for disease and everything else that naturally occurs in vineyards anyway. But that was very demoralizing for wineries to not be able to have that. Albertans are the second biggest consumer of BC wine after British Columbia, and so their visits to the wineries and the ability to sell to them and send wine to them is a huge part of what wineries here in British Columbia count on.
And it was interesting to hear Alberta's Premier Danielle Smith say the consumers themselves were the advocates on this. When we know it was, the liquor regulator was saying this is going to hurt stores, actual retailers, and so we're asking for that direct-to-consumer sales to stop and to put a ban on it. What is the motivation, do you think, for Alberta to now allow direct-to-consumer sales? Is it about pleasing the customer, or was there advocacy on the part of consumers in Alberta?
I think there's definitely that's a piece of it for sure. I think consumers were annoyed by the rift that was going on, and really wanted to continue to have their wines come in. A lot of the wines that they bring in are higher end wines. They're not available in a lot of the stores, and they still wanted to have access to that. But I think we haven't seen all the details of what this agreement is yet. But certainly at the basis of it originally, when AGLC made the ban, it was about not also being able to tax the wines that were coming directly to consumer, whereas wines that were coming into the stores faced the regular taxation process. And so whether that's a part of the agreement that's been made remains to be seen as we see the details that come out.
Okay, we'll look forward to those details then from the announcement. Again, Premier David Eby and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith have just announced a memorandum of understanding when it comes to allowing for sales of BC wine direct to consumers in Alberta. And so we're asking you, what impact will this have on BC's wineries? The Okanagan has certainly been affected, but as you heard, by the heat dome, by the cold snap over the last winter. So will this help to boost BC's wine industry? And what do you think this will mean for BC-Alberta relations and those cross-border relations? Love to hear from you. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can also hit pound 690 on your cell phone or email us bctoday@cbc.ca. And my guest right now is Shravan Khanna, who is a wine educator and Wine BC ambassador. And also joining us now for the political considerations around this is Danielle Reeve, political scientist at Camosun College. Hello, welcome to you, Daniel. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, great to be here.
I know you're at Camosun usually, but you happen to be in the Okanagan at Peachland today.
And it's lovely.
With a lovely view of the lake right behind you there. Certainly apropos for this discussion. What do you make of this agreement?
Well, I mean, it's really interesting because in January, when the Alberta government imposed these regulations, it kind of came out of the blue, and some people wondered what was behind the motivations to impose it at that time. Was this kind of politically motivated? The Alberta government and the BC government definitely have very different positions on a lot of key elements. But I wonder if positions softened, and as sometimes happens in politics, maybe it was personal. If you remember back about 6 or 7 weeks ago, when the two premiers, the Vancouver Canucks were playing the Oilers, and they both agreed that whatever team lost,
Right.
The other premier would wear the jersey. And I mean, it's kind of fun and kind of silly, but in other ways, and of course, Premier Eby, unfortunately for us Canucks fans, lost and had to wear an Oilers jersey. And
Yes.
Of course he did. And you wonder if that wasn't kind of, like a kind of hockey jersey diplomacy, just to kind of like chill out relationships. The wine sector here, the Okanagan, really needs help for a variety of reasons. As your previous caller said about global, climate change and all the impacts that's had on the wine sector, on the fruit sector, that this is an important economic step forward. And obviously the premier thought so as well. And so he's come forward with this agreement. And I think for him, that looks good. And that's an important step because as your listeners may or may not know, we tend to imagine that trade across Canada is kind of open and free trade. But in fact, anything that any province can regulate there's trade, like there can be the possibility of trade disputes between provinces, and it's not as easy flowing as one would imagine.
Right, as we see in this case. And what is there a jurisdictional issue here as well in terms of what Alberta can impose on industries in BC, or vice versa?
Yeah, it has to do with just basically the Constitution. What are the areas that are jurisdiction for province? So things like agriculture are provincial jurisdictions, and that's where provinces can, if they feel so inclined, impose tariffs, bans, which is the kind of the highest level between provinces to affect trade. Usually, it's one side feels that let's say they're trading grain. One province feels that the other side is doing something in their way they're building their grain system that is giving their province an unfair advantage. Then they will impose a sort of a counter tariff or some such measure. Really, it's the same thing that could happen between states, between countries. But in this case, obviously, Alberta doesn't really have much of a wine sector, at least, sorry for those Alberta wineries.
They have hockey, okay? They had hockey this year.
They do. They do. So I think this was one of those places where there really wasn't a counter tariff that BC could apply. And I don't think actually BC was interested. I think BC wants to, especially for this region that has been hard hit, they really want to get the economy going. And it's not the only solution, but it's definitely a step forward for the government and for the region, hopefully, more importantly.
And Shravan, what do you think will be the impact then moving forward on wineries?
Well, I think for this summer especially, when BC wineries really need to have sales, it will help to increase that. I think there were some Albertans who were going ahead, and there were some wineries who were going ahead and direct shipping regardless. Now they have free reign to be able to do that, and that will allow for them to sell what was a fantastic vintage. 2023 was a fantastic vintage for the Okanagan. There's lots and lots of wine there that's available. Looking forward to 2024, obviously there are going to be very few grapes and very few wines available next summer, except for back vintage stuff. So this will be a huge boon for Okanagan producers to be able to move some of that wine into direct consumer sales in Alberta.
Abigail wrote us an email. Modern day politics are so divisive. Let's just leave the politics out of this discussion. At the end of the day, Alberta and BC are neighbors, and we're all Canadians. Provinces should be able to politely and respectfully work out trade issues between them. Abigail, thank you very much. It's interesting to hear the tone and the tenor, the language being used amid, a lot of discussion right now around political rhetoric being so heated in light of the assassination attempt on former President Donald Trump. So a lot of discussion around divisive politics and language that's being used. It was interesting, David Eby this morning, describing it as he said, I'll call it a hiccup that we had with Alberta. So certainly a tone there that seems to be quite conciliatory, Dan.
Yeah, and I think that's definitely in a province where there is a lot of trade, and frankly, a lot of not just trade, but a lot of people who go back and forth.
Absolutely, yeah.
Who wouldn't want to go to the Rockies or come here for holidays. It would be strange, and I think it wouldn't be in the spirit of the two places really to pick fights for no reasons. And in this case, the tone that the premier said, it seems actually both of them. Premier Smith said, "Where there's a will, there's a way," and apparently both of them had a sufficient will to be like, yeah, let's get past this. Given how quickly the announcement was made and the timing, it seemed like this was just something they were ready to do if there was the will, and both clearly. I really think this was in Premier Smith's court to say yes or no, because I'm sure that the Premier here would have said, let's move ahead with this. And she decided that was fine. And again, I think sometimes, while there are political calculations, sometimes it's just personal. And if you get to know someone and meet someone and recognize who they are, it makes, whatever political divisions you have seem less personal. And that's, to get to the idea of tone, I think that's such an important part in our age, is to be able to see the person beyond the politics.
And Shravan, are there those kinds of considerations when you're talking about industries? Do they sort of live or die based on those political relations because of how much trade relies on them?
Oh, absolutely. And I think, unfortunately, wineries and vineyard associations and winery associations are at the mercy of the political relationships that exist. I mean, you look at we're so unique in the world in terms of trying to send wine across our own country, whether it's receiving it from other provinces or sending it from British Columbia to Alberta or to other provinces. You know, we have a federal bill, C311, that says that we can freely send things across the country, but each province makes their own rules. And British Columbia, Nova Scotia, Manitoba are the only three provinces that permit that to happen. And now Alberta is coming back in the fold. But it would seem to make sense for us to want to share that bounty with everybody across the country, because it is a product that we make here, and really it should be something that we should rejoice in rather than trying to restrict.
Well, I would imagine wineries are, toasting to this announcement today. We'll see what the impact is, as you say, when it comes to the details of the Memorandum of Understanding. Dan and Shravan, great to have you today. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
Enjoy Peachland, Dan.
Oh, you're very welcome.
Shravan Khanna is a wine educator and Wine BC ambassador, and Daniel Rhee, political scientist at Camosun College. It's 12:26 now in the Pacific time zone. Well, e-scooters and personal electric vehicles are becoming more common on the road these days, and Vancouver is introducing an e-scooter share this summer. We asked you how you feel about their rising popularity, and Myra wrote us an email. I'd like to state that I use all forms of transportation, biking, walking, driving, and transit, so I see it all. I'm disappointed that the main solution to e-scooters is to put them in the bike lane. More and more electronic vehicles are being placed there. It's a free-for-all. I feel less safe in some of these bike lanes because of the high speeds and disregard for the safety of others. Victoria writes, firstly, 18 people died in car crashes last week. I ride an e-scooter to work from Kitts to downtown every day, all year. I use bike paths unless I have to go on the sidewalk, where I reduce my speed to walking pace or slower. I'm a single mom with a low-paying job. I cannot afford a car nor buses. My scooter costs $500. The bus is overcrowded and takes me 45 minutes to get to work. My scooter commute is 25 minutes. We need more infrastructure. No way am I going on the scooter on the road surrounded by speeding tanks. And Jeremy writes, why don't we put the onus of infrastructure responsibility to the e-bikes or scooters, and that they have turning signals, driving lights, brake lights, and importantly, insurance. And Noreen writes, e-scooters are great for agile users, but I see quite a few in Victoria that do not follow the road rules, and it's very scary. The cyclists are very law-abiding now, but scooters and e-skateboards, one-wheels, are the Wild West. We need education and strict enforcement. Thanks so much for all of your emails. You can always write us bctoday@cbc.ca. Well, and the weather, it's quite hot these days for sure. And perhaps you think that's, weather that's perfect for going on a first date, going on a walk by the beach. We're going to talk about dating in our next half hour and how it has changed. What's modern dating like? What's the hardest part of it? Is it based too much on apps? Do you have to rely on apps too much to find someone and go on a date? And how do you even decide if someone is, long-term relationship material? If there's a future there. So we're going to talk about the ups and downs of modern dating in our next half hour. This is because our afternoon show in Metro Vancouver On the Coast is running a column on modern dating throughout this summer. Perfect time for it too. So we're going to talk about that, and we'd love to hear your stories and your perspectives in our next half hour. That's coming up right after this CBC News Update with Robert Zimmerman.
Good afternoon. BC's Minister of Children and Family Development has apologized for the systemic failures that led to the death of an 11-year-old boy 3 years ago while in foster care. It comes in the wake of a scathing report released today by BC's Representative for Children and Youth. The report called for a system-wide overhaul of the province's child welfare system, as a result of the boy's death, which came after years of abuse. A Surrey massage therapist has been acquitted of sexual assault. Bodie Haraldson was charged in relation to a client. A Surrey provincial court judge says she found many inconsistencies with the evidence presented by Haraldson's accuser. The judge went a step further, calling him innocent of the crime. And the City of Vancouver says it will upgrade fields at 2 parks in the city to become official training sites for the FIFA World Cup in 2 years. The fields at Killarney Park and Memorial South Park will be equipped with lights, locker rooms, and a news conference room. Work will begin in January. And now the forecast. Heat warnings continue in many sections of the province with highs around 40. On the north coast, periods of rain this afternoon with some sunshine and a high of 19. Highs to 31 and mainly sunny in the Peace. In the central interior, including Prince George, lots of sunshine with a high of 30 degrees. Highs up to 36 with a mix of sun and cloud in the Kootenays. In the southern interior, including Kelowna, sunny with a high of 36 as well. And for Metro Vancouver, Greater Victoria, and the Fraser Valley, warm and sunny this afternoon with highs up to 29 inland. That's your CBC News update from Vancouver.
Thank you, Rob. And good to see that the weather is improving in Toronto and in southern Ontario, where they had severe flooding as a result of a storm this morning. Just a lot of rain falling within 3 hours.
Very intense.
Yeah, very intense. And happy to report that now it does look like the sun is out and things are drying up, but it's all about cleanup at this point, I imagine.
Yeah.
Good to hear. Good. I'm happy to report that. Thank you so much, Rob.
You bet.
Rob Zimmerman in the CBC Vancouver newsroom. And here's an interesting story for you. Hockey related. Bobby Lalonde played with the Vancouver Canucks from 1971 to 1982. But despite that time with the team, Lalonde doesn't have any commemorative gear, like a jersey with his name on it to mark that experience. Well, his son is trying to fix that, and Court Lalonde spoke with the early edition Stephen Quinn this morning.
So I knew, I've been a hockey fan my whole life. First time I was ever on the ice was at Boston Garden. Don't remember it, but I was 2 years old. That was the first time I was on skates on ice. And I've never had, the guys in the 70s, they never kept anything. Like, I've talked to so many professional athletes that played during my dad's era, and none of them have anything. Some of them do, the bigger names like the Marcel Dionnes of the world, they have some of the stuff. But for my dad, he didn't keep any of this stuff. You get traded and you just move on. They just give you your nameplate and that was it. But Vancouver also was notoriously terrible in their infancy for keeping anything memorabilia-wise. If you go to the arena, they barely have anything up besides pictures because they didn't keep any of it.
Yeah.
Don't know what happened. From what I understand, I've talked to a lot of people in the NHL. The trainers back in the day, I guess, used to sell this stuff across the league, and that was a common knowledge that you could get all this stuff.
You're with BC Today. I'm Michelle Eliot. Very happy to be back with you after a couple of weeks off. Had a very relaxing and sometimes grueling time. I did do the grouse grind. Yay, I got to do it and finished this time. So happy to have a couple of weeks off. And thank you very much to Amy Bell, who sat in the host chair during that time. It is 12:34 now Pacific time. And is dating different in 2024? Is it just all about swiping right on those apps? Can dating still be romantic? And how do you determine if you have a future with the person you're dating right now? Well, CBC Radio's Metro Vancouver afternoon show On the Coast is taking a look at how dating has changed. And we want to hear from you. What is the hardest part about modern dating? And what's the best part of modern dating too? Tell us about those ups and downs. You can call us 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733, or you can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. If you want to email us, bctoday@cbc.ca is our address. Joining me now is CBC story producer Missy Johnson, and her new column is called Up to Date, and that looks at the changing and evolving trends when it comes to love, sex, and relationships. Hello, Missy.
Hi, Michelle.
I love the name of this, Up to Date. I was just saying, for me, it would be out of date because I have not dated in a very, very long time. I have no idea what goes on anymore. Do you swipe left? Do you swipe right? But how did you come up with this column?
It's a really good question. I wanted to do a column for On the Coast that was something that we could talk about with almost anybody. I wanted something that we could bring a lot of local people into the conversation for. And I thought that dating and love and sex would just be something that would be really fun to touch on, especially during the summer.
And what have you found are have been the biggest challenges for people?
I think so far from the people I've chatted with, I would say it's connection and finding that connection. I think we live in a world now where so much is done online, and I think that a lot of people are struggling to find somebody online and then make that real connection that keeps them hanging on, especially in a city like Vancouver that's kind of notorious for being a place that's hard to make friends and hard to make connections. That's kind of been the thing that's been kind of throughout all the conversations I've had, is just that really lack of meeting the right person organically.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I can't imagine how you even do that. Do people have time? But also, you're right, that is this just for today, or do we actually have a connection that could last?
Yeah.
How do you determine that? Well, we'd love to hear from our callers and our audience on this. Do give us a call. What are the biggest challenges? What's the hardest part of dating in the year 2024? Or what's the best part of it as well? If you have any tips to share with people, you can give us a call. This is the Dating Half Hour on BC Today. 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. And you can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. Patrick is calling us from Vancouver. Hi, Patrick.
Hey, Michelle, welcome back.
Oh, thanks very much. Good to be back. What's dating like for you?
So, like I was saying to your producer, I'm 37. I was in a long-term relationship. We split up, and I tried to get back into online dating, but it sucks. Like as your guest pointed out, it feels a little disingenuous, and I would love to meet somebody organically.
Yeah.
But it is tough to meet friends and meet new people in Vancouver. I'm from Ontario. I've been living out here for 5 years now. And, I try to put myself out there. Like I try to, just talk to people, like go up. I'm a friendly guy. I'm outgoing.
I can tell. Yeah.
I was making a joke. Like if you guys want to put me in touch with somebody else who's looking for a nice meet cute, let me know.
A meet cute on BC Today. How awesome would that be?
I would love to help set that up.
And what's the hard?
Follow-up.
So, sorry, go ahead, Patrick.
You can do a follow-up story if it pans out.
Yeah, exactly. And you said that, it's hard to even meet people, even though you are outgoing, just because it is Vancouver. What about once you are actually on a date? What is that? What's that like, that conversation, the connection?
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's different in the summertime. Like I feel like a lot of people don't want to be in a relationship in the summertime because so many people are out, on the beach, like looking at each other. There's a common joke, in my generation that like the winter time is cuffing season. Right. So that's when people really start to couple up and they
hunker down. Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah. But it certainly, has its challenges. People seem a little bit more uncommitted. My generation is a little bit more nomadic. I've met some people. And they're like, oh, I'm moving to Calgary next week, or it's like, okay, well, not really looking for a long distance relationship.
Nice knowing you.
Yeah. So the first dates always go well for me, but they seem to want to keep their options open.
Oh, Patrick, I really appreciate hearing from you.
Yeah, I love your show. I call in all the time. I appreciate you taking my call, too.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good luck to you. And hey, who knows, maybe there's a meet cute in your near future.
Thanks so much, Michelle.
That's Patrick calling from Vancouver. He described it so perfectly, right? Like the first date goes well, but whether that continues, someone may be moving to Alberta, which we know is happening. What did you make of what he had to say there?
I really liked what he had to say, and I think it's so interesting that he was able to contrast Ontario and how he was very outgoing and it was easy to make friends. And then once you come to Vancouver, it's different. That's what I hear from a lot of people, that Vancouver is different, not in a good way.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, Patrick being 37 and just talking about, his generation. It's not cuffing season right now, so maybe that's making people feel a little bit more distant and aloof. But we do have someone of a different generation now calling in to talk about modern dating, and Maureen is joining us from Penticton. Hi, Maureen.
Hi, how are you?
I am well. Thanks so much for calling.
I have a hard time meeting people. I think COVID had a lot to do with that. I joined a book club. That was a disaster.
Oh, no.
But my doctor has set up a coffee group. And it's, we meet at the retirement center here. And we meet on Fridays. And it's a mixture. And we are not allowed to talk about our medical issues. And it is the nicest way to meet people.
Wow. And that's great. And your doctor came up with it.
The social worker in my doctor's office came up with the idea.
Wow.
And she went through people who I suffer from depression, who have had a little bit of a hard time. And she set up this coffee group that meet on Fridays. And it is wonderful. And it's a mixture of males and females. And you're safe. And the doctor follows up, or the social worker follows up to see how things are going.
Wow.
And I just find it wonderful.
That's so great.
Safe.
Right. And it's organic, right? It is organized, but at the same time, your interactions and your being there is organic in that way. Maureen, any advice then from others who may be seeking to meet other people?
We also have in Penticton, the library is a good place. We have a very nice reading room in the library. I've met people in there, and you feel safe there. And just walking, like I live a block off the Skaha Lake, and I go down there in the evening, and I meet the same people down there all the time.
Yeah.
And I feel safe because there's lots of people down there.
Yeah.
And, I'm not dating anybody, but it's nice to meet people that way.
Yeah. And who knows, right, what will happen in the future?
I met the nicest man. He had a dog that is perfectly groomed.
That's points right there.
Yeah, I was reading my book, and he came and sat down. We started to talk.
Oh.
And we see each other down there all the time. And I'm not dating him or anything, but it's a nice...
Would you like to?
I would go out with him.
Oh, Maureen, I'm all for this.
And but I don't agree with online.
Yeah.
'Cause I think there's a lot of scams.
Yeah.
And,
you have to be careful.
And I don't like that way to meet people.
Maureen, I love the suggestions that you have. Having someone.
And my doctor her office is just awesome.
Oh, that's so great. What an engaged and involved doctor who goes past, what your physical issues your health issues might be, but just the social issues as well. We know loneliness has become so much more common. And Maureen, I sure hope that that you're able to meet someone if you'd like to. Someone special. Thank you for the call. That's Maureen in Penticton. I love it. Joining these groups. That's really helped her out.
I think that's an awesome idea. Really awesome.
Wow.
And I appreciate how she brought up COVID because I do think that has been a huge change in how we meet people and connect with people.
Yeah, absolutely. What impact do you think it's had?
I think that there was just a year or two where we were all chronically online and maybe we're kind of struggling to come out of that. I think a lot of people are.
Yeah. Reading those cues as well that aren't, on the screen. 1-800-825-5950 is our phone number. And also 604-669-3733, another number for you there, or you can hit pound 690 on your cell phone. If you want to email us, bctoday@cbc.ca. We're talking about modern dating. How has it changed? And what are the hardest parts of it? What are the best parts of it? You can give us a call. Maybe having a dog is a good one. Yeah. Maureen was just telling us about a man she met with a perfectly groomed dog. Let us know, what are your tips to 1-800-825-5950. Rita is our next caller now from Abbotsford. Hi, Rita.
Hi, Maureen.
Hi, it's Michelle here. Maureen was our last caller, but she was delightful.
Michelle, yes, I'm looking at you on the screen now. So.
Fantastic. And so what do you want to say about dating?
How shall I start, Michelle? I am 65 years old, a widow. Married my high school sweetheart, was married for 36 years, and I kind of find it in this era, in this generation, I have been trying to date. My husband passed away in 2016, and it's 8 years now. I've been a solo traveler, an entrepreneur in Abbotsford for 24 years, and I'm a churchgoer, so I'm trying to find different ways of meeting people, meeting men. And it's, as you say in your last conversation, I have a dog. I've had a dog, and I try to walk my dog, meeting other dog walkers. And,
yes.
You know, it's been difficult, Michelle. It has been difficult. It's such a great topic you bring about. And today being my day off, I've been enjoying my deck here and my son with my dog. I just love to engage in this conversation. And,
what's the hardest part that you're finding, Rita?
Meeting somebody my age group. I wouldn't want to bring somebody 10 years or 12 years or even though I look very young for my age, honestly. I do take care of myself. I do want to engage with somebody close to my age. I mean, I don't mind a few years younger than me, but with the same interest. I'm financially stable. I am very well maintained in other specific ways to, I've been a starter council on my starter council too. So, all these things are important to me as a person engaging with all these qualities. And but what do you do? I mean, it's hard. I'm looking for tips from your end.
Rita, you have obviously put a lot into it, and it sounds like you're just someone who's really into self-development, and you're very active and enterprising. I mean, it sounds to me like you're doing all the right things, but you're right. It might be different when it comes to different generations and different ages. I'm going to see if we can maybe talk about what are some tips. Perhaps some of our callers want to join us and send us some tips along for Rita and Maureen. You can give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. You can hit pound 690 on your cell phone as well, or email us at bctoday@cbc.ca. And my guest is my colleague here at CBC Vancouver, Missy Johnson, and she is presenting a column throughout the summer for On the Coast, our afternoon show here in Vancouver, all about dating. Did you get any advice?
Not yet.
Oh, that's coming. That's coming. We're working on that. Let's take a call now, rather, from Alex in Vancouver. Hi, Alex. Can you help us out here?
Yes. How do you do?
Very well. Thanks so much for calling.
I've never called in before, but I thought I would call now.
Fantastic.
Because, you hear all these stories of people looking for someone they want to meet, and they don't meet them, or at least it's difficult. And I just wanted to say that I dated for 45 years until I found the person I wanted to marry. And got married at 61, and a little late for children, but it was somebody I really wanted to be with. So I just wanted to say, don't ever give up.
Oh,
And I did organically as well as online. As much as online can be difficult, it takes a lot of time. I think that's the biggest thing. It takes a lot of time. And we met online, so it's possible.
Tell us more about how you met.
Well, do you want me to name the website?
Well, no, I'm interested in your story. You know, you met the right one after 45 years of dating. Here you are online. We do hear that it's difficult and you don't really know who you're going to be meeting with. What happened for you? What worked for you? What worked for you?
I personally don't like the 15-minute coffee routine, although I understand that people don't want to be in a situation where, they end up with somebody for 2 hours or even an hour.
Right.
When they know that it's not going to work.
Right.
But, in fact, I did meet the usual way, meet for a coffee, and then you get some kind of an idea, and then I said, well, can we meet for dinner?
Yeah.
And, as they say, I knew.
You knew.
Oh.
I love how you summed that up. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thanks for the advice. As Alex in Vancouver, don't give up. That's great advice.
I love it.
Yeah, just keep putting yourself out there. And after dating for 45 years, met the love of his life. Yes, through online dating. It started with a coffee, moving on to dinner as well. And next thing you know, they're married. He's 61. I'd love to hear from you. If you have a success story that you'd like to share and tell us some advice, you can give us a call, 1-800-825-5950, 604-669-3733. What are the hardest things about dating in 2024? What are the best things about modern dating too? And Missy Johnson is with me now. And one of, he talked about the coffee date. One challenge or sort of awkwardness that may come up is who grabs the bill?
Right.
What have you found out about that?
This is really interesting, actually. I would say that when it comes to hetero relationships, there is still the very age-old idea that the man should pay on the very first date. That kind of seemed to be the answer that I got over and over again. When I spoke to not straight people, they mostly said that they split, but I would say that there were a lot of people that split as well. So I went to the beach in Vancouver and I just kind of went up to as many people as I could and I asked them, what do you think? Who should pay?
Let's take a listen.
The man, always.
The man.
Yes.
Why?
It's just gentleman-like, yeah.
It's the first date. Who's paying?
I'll pay the first few dates. And then I think after that, if you can go 50-50, that's ideal.
That's a good question. I feel like I'm always prepared to pay, but I mean, if you want to pay, I'm not going to say no, but I'm always prepared to pay for myself.
Yeah, I'd say the same. If someone invites me out and I say yes, I'm going under the assumption that I'm going to be paying. First date, last date, whatever it is. So I always assume to pay.
Well, we live in one of the most expensive cities, so I think it's fair to split the bill, and that's fine.
I think we split ours.
Yeah.
We did.
Yeah, we did.
May I ask how you decided to do that?
We were getting drinks at a bar, and I think... Oh, no, I paid.
You did?
Yeah, but she got the next one.
Yeah.
Date 2,
That's
she paid.
equal, you know? Yeah, don't want to expect anything.
Who pays when you go out on a date?
Split. Yeah, split
Always.
it. I agree. Yeah, at least on the first date.
I guess even in Germany, it's usually him paying for the first date.
Yeah, you paid for our first date, that's true.
Well,
it would have been me. It was 44 years ago, so, things were a little bit different then.
That's fantastic. I think, just be prepared either way. I always do with friend dates now. It's the awkward, let me take it. Oh, you want to take it? Okay, I won't put up a fight. Mark is on the line in North Vancouver. Hi, Mark.
Oh, hi.
Hi. Did you have a dating story, a success story at that you wanted to share?
Well, I consider it a success. We met online 3 years ago, and a year ago we moved in together. And this past Saturday we got married.
Oh my goodness, you're getting applause for Missy here. That's fantastic. How was the wedding?
Oh, it was perfect. It was perfect. The temperature was perfect. It was a great weather. Everybody had a super good time. And I couldn't even imagine it being any better.
Oh my goodness. Yes, I would call that a success story. So you met online. What was it that was different about this person when you met? I mean, I imagine you had been online dating before.
I had, and I always found it to be a really I always enjoyed myself. I met a lot of really interesting people.
Yeah.
Always had a fun time. Some of them, I dated a few times, but, I think the difference was when I met my now wife.
Still getting used to it, eh?
Yeah. I just knew. So on the dating site that I was on, you can pull yourself back and not be available to people.
Mm-hmm.
But you can also cancel, and if you cancel, all of the stuff you've written and all the pictures and everything that you've put up to explain yourself to the world gets removed. And so after our first date, I pulled everything off and closed down my account.
Wow.
I knew that she was the one.
Oh, congratulations.
Oh, yeah, exactly. This is your wedding all over again. I hope you record this for your wife. Mark, thank you so much. And any quick advice for other people?
I think just go into it with an open mind and listen. That was one of the things that a lot of the women that I did meet online said, is that it seems like us guys want to go on and on about ourselves and don't tend to listen very well. So that's if I'm going to say anything, I'll say just listen. You'll learn a lot about somebody.
That is so true, I think, for any relationship. Mark, thank you so much. Congratulations. All the best to you and your wife.
Thank you.
That's Mark in North Vancouver. What a call to end on.
Oh my gosh, yeah, that was so nice.
Oh my goodness. And I love that. I just knew.
Yeah.
And we had that from our earlier caller as well. What are you going to be working on next for your column?
I'm going to be talking to hopefully a lot of different people. I'm going to be speaking hopefully this week with people who are neurodivergent about dating and what their experience is like. And
There's
then,
a great show on Netflix about that.
Yeah. So that will hopefully be the next one.
Okay, really looking forward to it. I love
Thank
all the
you.
different demographics that you're looking at. CBC story producer Missy Johnson. You can hear her column On the Coast with Gloria Makarenko. That's every Thursday this summer. It's called Up to Date.